Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name's Tyler with Chasing Collectibles,
And I'm Lauren.
and we're excited today to have with us Jeremy Cascamisi. And you're one of our first interviews that we've done, so we're super thrilled to have you. And been following you on Instagram for a little bit. I'm very jealous of your Spider-Man costumes. And before we really get dived into what you're doing, thought I'd just ask, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? Summary of your life. Yeah.
All right, sweet. My name is Jeremy Cascamisi. That second C is silent. I know it's tricky and
My
it's
apologies.
Italian. I don't know. Some people, my dad was in the military and people just call him Cass. So if you want to call me that, that's fine. But I'm born in Massachusetts, raised in North Carolina because my dad was in the military. And then I moved to New York about 3.5 years ago, living in Queens since May 2019. And I'm still here, going to school, got a new job, and, doing, making movies and dressing as Spider-Man on occasion.
Not a bad deal. We're actually we're in South Carolina, but just south of Charlotte. So that's pretty cool that you're from North Carolina.
Nice.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah,
That's
I'm visiting. I'm visiting later this summer because I love going back home. I love it there so much.
So where would you come to visit? Are you going to come into Charlotte or more towards Fayetteville?
I'm towards the coast, so closer to Fayetteville. So I'm from Newbern, North Carolina.
Okay.
So I'm closer to Wilmington, Jacksonville, Morehead City, the beach. That area. But
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah,
it's real cool. I'm a Cheerwine addict. I don't know if you're because I have a lot of friends from up north that will ask me to ship them Cheerwine. So that's pretty cool that you're from North Carolina originally.
We ask my girlfriend. We ask her parents to send us a Carolina treat. It's like a barbecue sauce, but yeah. So there are things that I miss, but I visit often enough that I don't miss it too much. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Right on. Well, hey, we were wondering what drew you to the character of Spider-Man. What got you interested in that particular character from the comics world?
From a very early age, I guess I was drawn to, it's kind of a funny story because I was so little that there's not really anything that should draw me to this character on like a deep level. So my early days, it was because he was wearing red and like that was my favorite color. Growing up, I like characters that were red. I like Lightning McQueen and Elmo, and I don't know. That's just stuff that like when I was like 2 years old, I liked red characters. So when Spider-Man came on the screen, I was like, I like that guy. He's in red. That he's on my team. But like as I grew up, it took on its a deeper meaning for me. I remember the first comic book I picked up, I was in 5th grade. And we had a book fair at school, and other kids would get whatever the latest book was, or they got pencils or these cool pens or toys. And I remember picking up a comic book and walking back into my classroom, and like I got asked, like, you got a comic book? And I was like, yeah. So that was like my first introduction, like a physical comic book that I could take home and read. But as I got older, the character becomes more relatable once you kind of live through certain experiences. The things that Peter goes through become things that everybody sort of goes through. So I started reading him a lot in like middle school, early high school, just as like escapism. I think storytelling is a valuable tool to like kind of teleport you into this other world, but it also helps you navigate your own life. And Peter Parker especially, or Spider-Man, is very much a character that like I want to be more like. So he helps me navigate the things that I was going through in high school and the things that was affecting me personally. So it was just a very interesting he's been with me since day one, but the reasons have changed as I've gotten older. And my favorite stories and my favorite movies have changed as well, because I relate to, different aspects of the character. But I think that's what's so cool about him, is that, like, no matter what age or version of the character you're initially drawn to, there is a version for every stage of your life. There's like something to look up to and something to still reach for through that character.
That's amazing. I mean, I think we all could relate to the same sort of a thing. No matter what your age. I'm a little bit older than everybody here, but it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
I just relate to the character so much because I'm just a normal person, and you get picked on and you wish you could beat these kids up, but even if you had the power, you can't do it, because then you're exposed,
Yep.
and you have to take the belittling, I guess. But
Yeah, it's
man,
such a
what
humbling.
what a great story, though.
Agree.
Yeah, I remember Stan Lee talked about how when he first like pitched the idea of Spider-Man, being a teenager and having personal problems. There's a really good inspirational video on YouTube that as a teacher I show my kids every year, where he was like rejected. They're like, you want to have someone with personal problems? Like, people don't care about that. But like you said, that's the thing that makes him relatable. Like, Peter Parker goes through,
Yeah.
suffering. He goes through, trying to win over the girl and trying to make these hard decisions. And I couldn't agree with you more about all that. So shifting gears to your film, I've watched the teaser, and I thought the teaser was really cool, and I've seen what you're doing. But for someone who doesn't know about your film, what makes your film unique from, I guess, other Spider-Man films?
For me, it's a very not only is it a Spider-Man story, I don't think many people have seen, trying to tackle the time period and the problems that come with that time frame, kind of puts Peter Parker and the other characters in this box. But it's also a very personal story about relationships for me. Growing up, that's one of the things that I related to with the characters. Like, he has girl trouble, and like I could never I didn't date throughout high school. I think I tried like freshman year and I got dumped twice, and then I stopped the rest of high school. And it's just something that, I tried to learn as I worked my way through it. But that's what this story is at the end of the day, is my story on how to juggle my life and a relationship. And I think like that is such a very great lens to put on the character of Peter Parker, because he already like lives that. He's juggling a secret identity and those that he loves. So I think that's a very universal story about the character, but I think I take it in a way where it means a lot more to each character, and you see the repercussions of that a little bit more. You can't go into a relationship on a foundation of lies. You have to be upfront. And I think the thing about Peter and Gwen's relationship is it never was. It was something Peter always hid from her. And that's kind of like the route I'm taking. Because even in the Amazing Spider-Man films, they kind of like, threw that out the door. She knew in the first film that he was Spider-Man. He kind of just like, he's just like, you know what, I'm him. But in the comics, he never tells her. And it kind of haunts him, I think, after her death, even, that, he was never honest with her, and she died not knowing the thing he should have told her. So that's kind of what my version of the character is struggling with. He's very unaware of what his actions are doing to others, I want to say. But you will also see in the film Gwen's side of it, so the audience is aware of the repercussions of Peter and Spider-Man's actions, but Peter himself is kind of like illusioned by him being a hero. So that's a very fun thing to tackle. I think it's a very like because the character is such an interesting character. You know, he has so many like, he's so rich. And I think that's a very human thing, to think you're doing the right thing and ultimately be letting somebody down. And I think that's what we're trying to tackle in this film. And I think separation wise, I think tone is going to be separated. I think even like the look of the film is going to be different than what you've seen before. We're going for a very, you know, balanced film where it's the fun of Spider-Man and then the pain of Peter Parker, you know, kind of clashing. It's not one thing, it's everything that makes this character good is kind of being smushed down into like a 15-20 minute short film. So it's been fun to try and figure out.
I don't want
It
to see it
sounds
now.
like you're trying to stay true to how the comic books came, you know, what the comic book stories were, as opposed to, you know, they follow in the movies that we've seen, they followed the skeleton of it, but they haven't really dived deep into exactly what you were saying about, you know, seeing it from Gwen's perspective, you know, how let down she is, you know, he's not able to make the date or not able to make her party or whatever because he's off fighting the Lizard or Doc Ock or whoever.
Yeah.
So I was curious, really, did you have to get a license to use the Spider-Man name, character, and image for all this?
No, and the reason is because this character, if you are not profiting off of the character, he's free to use. So I can accept donations on this project, but I cannot retain a cent that is donated to me, and I can't charge people for anything. But the character himself, you know, other fan films have been made for decades and have run into, you know, no problems. If I'm not marketing him as my own idea, if I'm not saying, you know, this is my character, then there's not really, like, if I'm giving credit to where credit is due and I'm not asking people to give me, you know, money, which like the Indiegogo is asking, but it's for donation. It's not charging people to view it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be like, you can't see this film unless you send me $15. Like, accepting donations, it's different than you know, charging people. But yeah, he's pretty much free to use if you give credit to where credit is due and you don't profit off of him, which this, like, even on YouTube, I know YouTube creators can make money off of a certain amount of views or whatever, but you can't on a licensed property, even music. So there will be no profit gained off the character, and therefore I am allowed to make a fan film.
Well, that's excellent. We're so looking forward to it. Has there been any challenges this last couple of years with the whole COVID thing as far as filming goes? Have you had to put anything on hold, or is it just you know, what's a little bit of just a small bit of what the process would be like?
I mean, it's just along with you know, COVID, I went home to North Carolina actually when it first struck, because I lost my job up here. And I was going on about 3 weeks of trying to make it. But, you know, groceries were running out of food. I didn't have any money, you know, so I did have to go back home to live in my mom's house again, which is a crazy thing. But that's back until the end of July. So then we picked up shooting in, I want to say, the end of September, early October, and that's when we shot, you know, some Peter Parker stuff, and we initially shot the restaurant stuff October 2020 as well. But then, you know, winter hits and I don't want to be in spandex in this weather.
Nope.
So that also puts a hold on things as well. That's what I'm currently waiting for once again. But yeah, so there's just, and I think things have evolved, ideas have evolved, because there was a point where I wanted to do, there's been many versions of the story and of the script that I think with time, as me and other crew members or actors, actresses have developed more and more skills or developed more and more ideas. So it's kind of been like, there's been these obstacles in the way, but it's provided us space to kind of like curate and make this a better thing than it would have been, you know, if it came out in 2020. So yeah, weather and the virus have definitely proposed its challenges, but when we do eventually, like, you know, step on to set or get out to shoot something, it turns out better than it would have been if we hadn't had that time to, you know, think about it.
Yeah, so it's almost like a blessing to have that extra time and that extra space to sort of gather yourselves up a little bit and take a break and
Yeah.
get
And
everything.
it gives me days to work out and get
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I was you mentioned spandex. So I've got a Spider-Man suit. It's not as good as yours. I've got another one coming, but I really want to get one from that one company that you've mentioned before on your Instagram. But the first time I put on my suit, I felt like I couldn't stop smiling because I felt like a little kid just like being Spider-Man. And I just wanted to ask, like, what does it feel like to be like putting on the costumes? You definitely look the part of Spider-Man. I've seen your videos where you've like recreated scenes and all that. Like, you look the part. Like, so what's it like getting to wear the costume and, you know, just you seem like you have fun with it.
Oh, it's a ton of fun, and I always say this, it's very funny if you go out in public with it, because you know there's so many people that will, like, you know, dress up as the character. Even in Times Square, there's people that dress as Spider-Man all the time. So it's very funny when you're wearing like 90% of this costume except the mask, and almost nobody cares. You're just a guy in a Spider-Man costume. But as soon as you put on the mask,
Yeah.
you are only referred to as Spider-Man, and you are yelled at from across the street, and you are waved down to take pictures with. So it's a very, if I want some personal space, I'll just walk around, you know, without the mask. But if I, you know, if I'm feeling up for it, you know, putting on the mask changes the entire thing. And it just kind of like, it's a little overwhelming. Like the reactions are just very authentic. You know, people really connect to this character, even if underneath I'm just some dude, you know. Like,
You know what's kind of funny is the ironic thing, if once you become more well known as an actor, you know, maybe worldwide or nationwide or whatever, you can't escape now at all. Because you could be walking around without the mask and hey, there's Jeremy, or you'd be walking around with the mask. Oh, there's Spider-Man,
Yeah.
So there's
No escape.
there will be no escape. So I don't know, that could be a pretty bad conundrum to be in.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's awesome. And in terms of shooting, you know, I'm around my friends and they do this as well, or if they don't do this, they know I do this, and I've been doing it for like 6 years. So it's not really like a, oh my God, you're Spider-Man moment as much as it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, oh, there goes Jeremy again. He's putting on a Spider-Man suit. But
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
it feels, I think the part that gets me now is seeing myself played back on, like, you know, the camera rig. That is what gets me a little bit, because like, not only am I in this costume, but like we're shooting something that puts me in like a cinematic light, which is like insane to like just look at. And like,
Yeah.
like there's a shot at the end of the teaser where I'm sitting on the edge of the, you know, the Essex building in New York, and like you see the skyline in the foreground or the background, and like I just have to take myself out of that and be like, that's me on the edge of the building. Like, so that stuff is what gets me these days, is seeing, you know, other people's reactions in public, and then seeing this product kind of come to life.
So I know you've got the Amazing Spider-Man suit, right? You've got the Garfield inspired one, and then you've got the suit you're using for the movie. Do you have any other suits?
those are the only two I have at the moment. I had three at one point, but I sold one to be able to afford another. I'm looking, I don't know. They're so expensive there,
They
so I'm trying to balance what I spend my money on these days, whether it be film equipment or, Spider-Man costume. But I am a big fan of the new, like the PlayStation 5, like Spider-Man 2. I know we've only seen like a small teaser of that costume, but
Mhm.
I prefer it to the PS4 version of the advanced suit. But I do like how streamlined it is. It's got a little bit more sharper edges, and some of the unnecessary add-ons from the PS4 version are gone.
Mhm.
And I really like that version of the costume, but I also have been thinking about getting a TASM 1 suit again, because that's the one I sold a while back. But I like that that first Andrew Garfield costume is so, it stands out amongst other ones. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. So with the movie, what other sort of characters can we expect to see in there? Anybody that the Spider-Man fan world might know about? Any other great appearances coming with that?
Other than Gwen, I'm not too sure I always, if there's another character in my films, or if I'm trying to tackle a Spider-Man story, if I throw a character in there, I always, research obscure characters. So there is the cop in the movie is Officer Patrick, who eventually becomes like Anti-Venom, but I just took his name. So I don't think so even though he's a character from the comics, I'm just like throwing a name from the comics into the script, other than like, oh, this character will be Anti-Venom one day. But yeah, so Officer Patrick is in there, even though he's not Officer Patrick from the comic books. Aunt May isn't in it, but we have a conversation through a phone. Jonah is mentioned. So there's not really, I think it's a very, it's a closer look at Peter and Gwen's relationship. So there are Easter eggs for other characters, I suppose, but there aren't any actual appearances of characters. But I will say, if you follow other Spider-Man fan films, there will most likely be cameos from, people that play these other characters in
Cool.
other films. So
Yeah. Well, I know this is more of it's more of an intimate film when it comes like Gwen and Peter. Uh, let's imagine if you were making one of these MCU or larger films, and you had an unlimited budget, and there was like a favorite villain of yours that you got to fight. Who is like a top Spider-Man villain that you would love to interact with?
I mean, I love Goblin. Goblin has always been my favorite villain, but I feel that there's not much room to tell, what hasn't already been told with that character. I like Spectacular version of Goblin the best. And I think if we were to see like, the Spectacular Spider-Man version, Goblin would be a character or villain I would want to kind of interact with. But I think it'd be cool to see. I'm trying to think. Like the entire Sinister Six is pretty dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Sony's been trying to do that for years.
Yeah.
And they kind of shoot themselves in the foot every time.
Yeah. And I take your point about Goblin. I don't want to say too much because Lauren actually hasn't seen No Way Home yet, but I know in the trailers you do see Goblin, so that's not spoilers, Lauren. But he really does steal the show. But like I've heard some people say he needs to be in another movie. I'm like, well, he's kind of like, I don't want to ruin it, like he's it's like, what more do you do?
I agree. That's why he's an interesting one. But if I feel like, especially when another one I would love to do would be Ock, but Spider-Man 2 is my favorite, and I don't want to touch that character either. I think Lizard was handled poorly in that first Hazard movie, so he'd be one even though it feels too early to kind of retackle that villain, I like his story with you know, his son Billy and his wife. I like his story a lot better that way than just wanting to be a crazy lizard. I don't know, but
Well, it's a shame because there were deleted scenes in that movie that made him more relatable, and then
exactly.
Yep.
You know,
That's
so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that you sort of answered my next question, which would be which one of the films is your favorite, and which one of the guys influences you most as far as your acting goes.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2 is my favorite Spider-Man film. I watch either that one or 2.1 multiple times a year. I watch all of them all the time. I think Spider-Man 3 has been one I revisit a lot more now, and I used to dislike that movie a lot.
Yeah.
But
Am I-
you know, I'm watching it for fun these days, and I think there are still things that Sam Raimi gets right in that film, and there's still things that feel you know, that could have been better. But I think that for an actor, I think Andrew Garfield was like, not only do I see myself in him the most, but he came out at a time where Spider-Man like lined up with me. And I think that was very important. Like I said earlier, you know, when Toby's first movie came out, I don't know what my attraction was to him. You know, it wasn't the struggles that he was going through in Spider-Man 1. It was probably because, you know, he was red. But you know, Andrew Garfield came out at a time where I was going into high school, and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man was like a sophomore, junior in high school. So I grew up skateboarding. So like when I saw that the trailer for that, and I knew I was going into high school, when I saw that movie, it was just, you know, such a different take. It was a fresh take. So though I think that franchise has its fair share of problems, I still really love the performances from Andrew and Emma. And I think that's so special, and it has definitely like influenced me. And I just like his career. I think him as an actor is just, he's a wonderful one to watch. So he's been very influential on a few choices here and there.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same ballpark age-wise. I mean, I feel similar about, you know, like Toby's probably my favorite in some, you know, just because it's Toby, you know, he's like the first movie one, but like Andrew is, I remember distinctly going to see his movies in theaters, and it'll make you happy to know that, and let's not diverge into other stuff with spoilers, but my students, like there's like a renaissance going with him right now, because we had a day where I said, "Oh, we can choose any Spider-Man movie," and I said, "Which one do you guys want to watch?" They said, "You guys want to watch Toby?" They said, "No." I said, "You want to watch Tom Holland?" They said, "No." I was really surprised with that, and they said, "Let's watch Andrew." And and then of course there was a scene where he was shirtless, and some of the girls were like whispering. I was like, "All right, I don't care about that," but
Hilarious.
but
Oh,
I know you're in general a superhero fan. Like I know you like the Snyderverse and all that. So I did want to ask you, what superhero content are you looking forward to a lot? You can tell I'm a big Batman guy. I'm going to see Batman on Tuesday in IMAX. I'm pumped for that. But what's on your radar for 2022?
definitely. I mean, Batman, I have my tickets already as well. I think I'm going Thursday the 3rd in IMAX. But
Nice.
Batman is up there. I think that's my most anticipated this year. But Multiverse of Madness, obviously, Sam Raimi's return to comic book movies is like something I'm looking forward to. Other than that, I'm sitting back and cautiously moving forward with like other DC films. I have no idea what to expect from The Flash. I have
Yeah.
no idea what to expect from Aquaman or Black Adam. So, you know, I'll go to see those, but as far as like excitement goes, there's little to none. I think The Flash would be one I'm most excited for if I had to pick one, because Flash is one of my favorite DC characters. But
That's because he wears red.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I guess Multiverse of Madness and the Batman. But I am a little lost on what Disney Plus shows are coming out this year. I know they've shifted a lot. I
Yeah,
think
they've got
Moon
Obi-Wan, I
Knight-
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
got Moon-
Obi-Wan, they've got I think is She-Hulk coming out this year. I don't Moon Knight.
Yeah,
think it's
Moon Knight
coming.
is coming out. I think, like you said, She-Hulk is supposed to be coming out. That'll help me out because I have the books and I'm ready to sell.
Yeah,
So-
that does it.
Yeah.
Which as far as collecting goes, do you have a personal collection of toys, comics, or that kind of thing? And what do you like to collect?
I like to, I grew up in every week or every other week. I was very involved with my church growing up back home, and
Excellent.
my youth pastor is one of the people that like really got me back into superheroes. He would take the youth group to go see every MCU release, every Star Wars movie. We'd have Star Wars marathons, but me and him would kind of do he was guiding me through high school. So we would take comic book trips or go to the comic book store like once a week, and then we'd have conversations in our car. But I would like save up all the money I could get every week to go to that comic book store with him so I could come away with something special. But yeah, I've collected figures. As a kid, it was toys, so I was always like wanting to get new toys. But now I do collect Marvel Legends. I see a few behind you now. I got the new, I mean, not so new now. I feel like it's like a year and a half old now, but the what do I call it? The classic like Peter Parker, Gwen Stacy, J. Jonah Jameson, Black Cat wave that Legends did. But and then as far as comic books go, I've slowed down because I have lost interest in a few of my favorite series, sadly. Things that did catch my interest, or even Spider-Man hasn't really caught my interest lately. I'm excited for Romita Jr. to come back to the artwork. Because he's my favorite Spider-Man artist.
I think my favorite Spider-Man artist has got to be John Romita Sr., because that was my era. When I was a kid, he was my guy.
It's hard to compete,
Yeah.
but I think I like Romita Jr. as well. I think those would be my top two. They're amazing. But yeah, so comic books, it fluctuates. If I'm at a comic book store, I picked up a few comics a few days ago. I pretty much do covers at the moment. If a cover catches my eye, I'll pick it up. It's up and down if I actually read it. I used to do a lot of trade paperbacks. That's the stuff I used to read. Most of my collection is back home in North Carolina right now, though, because I don't have the storage for it.
And what's the address? Not that I need it anymore. You can plainly see it's like good night.
Yeah, I need to set up like that. But other things, I collect a lot of movies. I have probably over 200 Blu-rays for my movies, and it's a good thing too, because I always bring up to people, the DC movies are leaving HBO Max right now, and I have no idea where they're going. And I'm like, this is why you buy physical. Streaming is so up and down, and I like, if it's something that really means a lot to me, I'll go ahead and pick up a physical. But yeah, I collect a lot of things, like vinyls is another thing that I collect. Skateboards, you can see there's 4.
Oh, nice.
Right here.
Yeah, I was wondering about this.
Yeah. So anything that looks cool and aligns with my personality, I'll go ahead and start collecting.
That's how to do it.
That's cool that you're comic book guy as well, because I'm not one of these gatekeepers that's like, oh, if you don't read the comics, you shouldn't be watching the movie or anything. I'm not one of those guys, but like, Lauren and I, before we did the online thing and did our, started our own page, we worked for a physical comic book store, and we'd be sitting there, and as popular as the movies would be, there'd be days where we're just sitting there, it's empty and like dead. And, there are times when people are like, oh no, and this is a spoiler for Avengers Endgame, but they're like, oh no, Tony Stark died, he needs to come back. I'm like, or you could, pick up a comic and he's still there. And it's not the same, but it's like, come on, we gotta support the source. And it's cool that to see when there's been, I think there's been a better push to give credit to artists and writers and try to stream people to like, hey, if you like the movies, pick up a book, support your local comic book store.
Definitely. That's
Well,
something I love doing back sorry.
I know you're good.
Because my local one, if you guys do free comic book day,
Mhm.
but that's an event I did every year where I used to show up as Spider-Man and, try to bring a wider audience into the shop. But he always paid me at the end of it, thanked me for being there. He always provided lunch, but I love small town comic book stores is like where my heart is,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, just to wrap up, I want to give you a chance to just to make sure you get to fully plug everything. I know you kind of mentioned it here and there, but for those that are interested, which I know, Lauren, I think you're interested. I'm interested and super interested in seeing the film when it's done. How can those who are interested support it? And then once it's done, how can people see it?
Sweet. I think as far as support goes, at this point, I think I've raised enough money to bring it to its completion. We're looking to get some audio equipment next week, bring in new talent, all that stuff. So as far as support goes, just spread word. And if you want to grab a poster or a t-shirt, go ahead and check out the Indiegogo. Links in, my bio. And you will be able to watch it on YouTube on my page when it is out and released. There is an early screening you could buy on the Indiegogo as well if you want to join me and the Chillin' with Villains cast and podcast to stream it together as like a fun little event. First time viewing it, that'll be a limited offer that I think 30 people are going to be allowed to attend, where you come join us and we watch it a week before everybody else does. So it's kind of like a test screening, get
Yeah.
audience reactions and then make a few tweaks before putting it actually out there. But yeah, so that's how you can support me. Yep. And be on YouTube to watch.
Do you have a
Hopefully-
set release date for it?
No
An
set
official
release
date?
just because things have been so up in the air and it's like so tricky to just be like, especially when I'm not like being hounded by a studio to be like, yo, it needs to be out this date.
Yeah.
When we're done shooting, I will probably put out a release date, but at the moment there's still 2 more scenes to shoot and there's nobody working for me. That's why it's like tricky to have a release date, because I'm working around everybody else's schedule because they're doing it for free. Like we're all having fun just making it out of, because we want to make it. So if it would be different if like everybody was working for me and I was like, you have to be here on this day at this time, we do this and then we're done. But I have to collect everybody, like, are you free to do this today? So it's like a little harder to work around. But after we finish those 2 scenes, yeah, honestly, I'm already editing, what we have. So it's just about shooting the new scenes, plugging it into the final product, and we're good to go. So there's a range that I'm looking at, and that should be summertime.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, this has been an absolute joy. We've really enjoyed having you, and we're really looking forward to seeing it. And thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, Jeremy. Thank you so much. It's good to meet you.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you guys, and thank you for inviting me on here. I hope like this blows up for you guys because you guys are so good at this. Honestly, you guys are so natural with bouncing off of each other. So I feel the energy and this is awesome. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.